Hey, it's Adrian. Earlier this week, I got an email from a young lady over in America named Alicia, I believe, asking me for some advice on how to get pageant sponsorship. Now, there's an email over here that's about to go out to my list, which contains an article as to some of the advice that I would give to someone who's looking for pageant sponsorship. But I wanted to drop in here on video and also audio if you're listening on the podcast to sort of go through it, go through those concepts, but also maybe expand on them a little bit, give you some of my thoughts on them. Firstly, let me start this by saying getting sponsorship is extremely hard. I don't think there's any way around it, and I think there's a couple of reasons for it. Firstly, a lot of people don't understand pageants, so if you go to a sponsor, they probably don't know anything about pageants, and you have to kind of explain it to them. And you've got to do a good job explaining it to them because you might go, I've explained it to them, but if they don't understand it, then you haven't succeeded. So I think that's a first hurdle. Second hurdle you have to understand is a lot of people are hurting from money and finances right now because of the pandemic. And if they are struggling to make ends meet, it may not even matter if you can convince them that sponsoring you would be a great thing. They may not be able to afford it. So, given those two things, if you are going to go and try to get sponsorship and it's any significant amount of money, and what you mean by what different people mean by significant, it varies a lot. But in this case, if we're talking about a couple of $1,000 US sponsorship that you need to raise, that is no small amount of money. So here's what I would suggest. And as I've written, I'll just share my screen for you if you're watching on video. If you're listening on the podcast, then I will read out what I'm doing. But there are three general areas that I would advise, three questions that I want you to ask yourself and really address. Number one up here is, what do you want? As in, what do you want? Be specific. Number two, why should someone sponsor you? What value are you actually adding to them? And then number three is, make sure, this is common sense part, make sure you deliver what you promise. So number one, what do you want? Number two, why should they give it to you? And number three, make sure you deliver what you said you were going to deliver. Now, if we go up to this first one here, what do you want? Be specific. The reason that I say this is a lot of people, even when they approach me for interviews or other opportunities, they'll just say, hey, you want to collaborate together? You want to collab together? And the problem with that is it leaves it up to me. First off, it's taken up my time. Secondly, you've taken up my time and given me no idea what you actually mean. What does collab mean? What do you mean by collab? And then thirdly, if I do want to collab with you, I then have to spend time asking you. I have to find the time in my day to send an email or send a DM. And you go, Adrian, well, sending an email or DM, it's only 5 seconds. How many of you have emails or DMs you haven't replied to that are super important? We just get busy. So when you approach someone, you don't want it to be a long approach by any means, but you want it to cover the basis of what you want so that I can read it, or the person you're approaching can read it and go, oh, that's what you're looking for. That's why you want it. So that now if I'm interested, I can respond to you. And if it's not for me, then I don't have to waste my time chasing up. Now you might go, well, Adrian, if I say what I want and they immediately know that they don't want to give it to me, then I've lost a sponsor. Well, not really, because they weren't going to give it to you anyway. What you've done is saved time. So number one, be very specific as to what it is you want or need, whether it is an email, an SMS, a direct message, or even if you're jumping on the phone, right? So what is it that you want? Is it a specific amount of money? I suggested that very often it's useful to have different sponsorship levels. So as an example, you might have gold, silver, and bronze, and maybe bronze is anyone up to $20, silver is anyone up to $50, and gold is $100 or more. So when people ask you, well, how much money are you looking for? And let's say you are looking for $2,000, you don't say something like, oh, well, I'm looking for $2,000, so whatever you can give would be great. You don't want to force them to make the decision. So say, well, $100 for gold, and for gold you get this, $50 for silver, and for silver you get this, and etc., etc., etc. So be a bit imaginative. And as I've written here, if you're asking for something other than money, I mean, normally pageant sponsorship is money, but if you're looking, let's say, for a sponsored photo shoot, then be very, very specific as to what shoot you need. Do you need hard copies or do you just need the digitals? How many photos you're expecting, etc. So number one, what do you want? And be specific. Now, moving on to number two, this one is a really, really, really big one. And please hear me on this. So, why should someone sponsor you? And what tangible value can you add to them? This is, as I've said here, this is where I see almost all pageant girls fall down. Because when they do, if they do go to the trouble of actually writing a somewhat professional email or direct message, so often the first thing they go is, "Dear so and so, I hope you are well." It always starts with, "I hope you are well." But then the next one is, "Oh, I'm competing in this pageant in July. And this pageant is, I've been working for this pageant for my entire life. And this pageant is my dream. Please sponsor me." Now, I get it that it's important to you. I do. That's a pageant part of me. The business part of me, and I've been a business owner much longer than I've been in the pageant industry. The cold-hearted business owner part of me goes, why should I care? You've approached me, taken up my time, and you're just telling me about how great you are and how important this is to you and that I should give you money. No, I'm not. Why would I do that? I mean, even if I had excess, huge amounts of money to throw at you, you still haven't told me what's in it for me. I remember there was a marketing class. I think it was in my music business management marketing class. Somebody put it this way. They said, you have to tune into everyone's favorite radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me? WIIFM. And I really, really need you to dig in. And before you approach someone, and by the way, you should be specific about who you approach. If you're just approaching everyone, then there may be nothing in it for them. Don't approach those people. You're kind of ripping them off. If there's nothing in it for them, don't get them to give you money. But when you are approaching someone who you know would be a good fit with you and with pageantry, the brand is a good fit, then how about maybe we don't start the email with this, although I'd certainly advise it might be a good idea. Start by saying, okay, I'm looking for sponsorship for XYZ pageant in July, right? But start by addressing what's in it for them. So, for example, if the pageant is viewed by hundreds of thousands of people live, and you can prove this by saying, let's say last year's pageant had 100,000 views, then that's going to be useful for the business or the potential sponsor to know, because they go, okay, exposure. What you should also say is it's not just 100,000 views, but what are the demographics of the views? Or what are the demographics of the girls competing in the pageant? And what does demographics mean? Is it men or women? How old are they? Where are they living? Where are they from? Are we talking about a pageant that's local to your city, local to your state? Is it a national pageant? Is it an international pageant? Frankly, are you competing in a local pageant that could go to national, that could go to international? So when you're setting up a sponsorship, you might end up giving the sponsor international exposure, not just local exposure. But I need you to think, what is in it for them? You'll know what's in it for you. Let's be honest. The sponsorship. If you don't get the sponsorship, you probably can't compete in the pageant unless you pay for it yourself, if that's allowed. In most cases, that's allowed. But start asking what's in it for them and make more of the communication about the other person than what you need. I mean, you're specific about what you've said. That was point one. So you're stating what you need or what you're asking for. You're asking for money. You're offering levels. But say why they would be a good fit for you. And say what you're going to do for them. What value, as I've said here, what tangible value can you add to them? Now, most of you will go, okay, well, I'm going to offer posts and or stories on my social media. Please take what I'm about to say with a little bit, it's tough love, but exposure on your social media, may not mean very much. And I don't mean that's just a numbers game. I'm not saying you need 1,000 or 10,000 or a million people for exposure to mean something. But again, it comes down to the demographics of your following. And I know this from experience. I know a queen over here who competed representing Australia. I looked at the demographics of her following. She had a large following. But let's say because of what she published, what kind of posts she put up, her following was over 90% male, and it was over 90% sort of young, let's say young blooded males. So yes, she might have had 100,000, 200,000 followers, but 90% of them are male. And if you're trying to approach, let's say, a female centric company, that's not really my target market, is it? If you're approaching me and I'm running a female centric company, you could say you got 100, 200,000 followers, but that's not my target market. The other thing that you need to be aware of is how much exposure businesses can get now from social media advertising. You might only be asking for $100, but $100, and I say that in inverted commas, $100 can go super, super far in terms of how many people can expose you to on social media. So don't just fall into the trap of going, oh, I'll give you exposure on my Instagram and think that that's enough. You may need to go a step further, add something more, do an in-person appearance, do a video, do whatever it is, but be prepared to go that little bit further so that you stand out, so that you look like a good value proposition for someone to sponsor. Don't just be lazy and go, oh, I'll tag you in my post or I'll tag you in my story. Unless you have a large following, an engaged following, and that following is a target demographic that the potential sponsor is interested in. Okay, so lead with why someone should sponsor you and make sure you are very clear on what tangible value you're going to add to them and what you are going to do. Again, be specific, lay it out. Bullet point. I will do this, or I'll do this many posts, this many stories. Final part, common sense part, but make sure you deliver what you promised. Okay, please don't be one of those people who says you're going to do stuff and then doesn't do it. It makes you look bad. It makes the sponsor never want to have anything to do with pageantry again, because it makes pageantry look bad, because you probably spun this great story as how you're going to save the world, and then they gave you money and you didn't ever comment, you didn't ever message them again, stay in communication with them. So when you are delivering, let's say, a post, as I've said here, make sure you're in not constant, but you communicate consistently with your sponsors so that they know that you're doing what you promised. It's not up to them to follow your socials, always hunting by the hour to make sure that you've done what you said you were going to do. Do it professionally, do it responsibly. When you do that post or that story, this is just an example, but if that's what you promised, I've said tag them in it. Better than that, tag them in it and then also message them saying, hey, here's the post I promised you. Any thoughts, let me know. Maybe you could send them the draft so that they're happy with it within reason before you actually post it. So that's the final part. So make sure you deliver what you promised. So just to recap here, I'll share my screen again. Number one is, what do you want? And be specific with that. Number two is, why should someone sponsor you? And as I said here, what tangible value can you add to them? Don't just lead your email or your message with what's in it for you and forget about them. And then the third part, the common sense part, make sure you deliver what you promised. Now, I've put a few extra sort of ending thoughts here. One, I've already covered in terms of exposure. Exposure really may not mean as much as you think, and it may not be a great value proposition for your sponsors. So try and think of other ways that you can add value to a potential sponsor. The other thing that I've said here, and this leads into a lot of businesses struggling because of the pandemic and other reasons, maybe you'd be better off rather than just simply, and sponsorship is not really this, but it kind of is this, where you're simply asking for something for nothing, right? In theory, they're giving you money for nothing. You're not giving them a product or service back. You kind of are, but you kind of not. Depends on what you're offering them back in return. But maybe you'd be better off setting up your own little business on the side and taking all the funds, all the profits from that, and dedicating that to the pageant sponsorship that you need to raise. So I've just said here, I mean, silly examples. Maybe you could mow people's lawns, shovel snow, run a cake store. Maybe you could wash people's cars. And I just say that because if you go to someone and say, look, I'm hoping to raise this much money for my pageant in July, August, whenever it is. It's super important to me because of XYZ, right? I want to empower women, or let's say my mother died from cancer and I'm raising this in her memory. And then if you say, look, I'm just asking people if they'd like me to mow their lawn or wash their car or walk their dogs, and in return for that, to give a donation back. In my mind, you're much more likely to land, let's say, $50 or $100 for that sort of, okay, I'm doing you a service, but you'll give me a little bit more than you normally would because it's a donation and, there's a goodwill aspect to it. Rather than simply going up to someone and say, hey, give me money, give me money, give me money, give me money, and I'll give you a shout out on my Instagram. So that's a thought. So maybe rather than just asking or hitting people up for sponsorship, and if you're not having any success with that, and let's say you have a tiny social media following, you might have much more luck with this sort of set up a small business idea and use the profits as sponsorship. I'm not saying that you need to start up an Amazon or Google or YouTube or Netflix. Look, if you want to do that, more power to you. You probably won't need sponsorship if you manage to do that. But rather than just taking the easy way out and going, oh, give me money, give me money, give me money, and I'll do a post for you, be prepared to actually work. So whether it is you go and mow someone's lawn, as I said, take their dogs for a walk. Maybe if you have the right connections, you could do babysitting. I mean, look, you are limited only by your creativity here. But as I said, if you are doing something for someone and they're aware that you're doing it for a good purpose, I can quite easily see them. Let's say maybe you get paid $50 a night for babysitting, getting $100 a night because they know that you're doing it for a good reason and you're trying to raise money, but you're not just asking people for money. You're willing to put in the work. So that's something that an afterthought that I put there. And the last thought that I put there was never compare. This is in pageants in general, but when it comes to fundraising, never compare the money that you've raised, the amount you've raised, to anyone else. And I say this because there was a particular pageant, this was before COVID, and back in 2019. And word was getting around because people were publishing how much money they'd raised for this pageant. And word got around, well, this girl published that she'd raised, I think it was $30,000 for the pageant. $30,000, as in you could buy a not unreasonable new car here in Australia for $30,000. And there were a lot of girls who were struggling to raise $100. And it turned out, not that the girl hadn't raised the money, but what she had done was basically run, I believe it was an afternoon tea, and she was working a professional job 9 to 5, but she had very wealthy parents, a wealthy partner, and wealthy connections. So it was super simple for her to throw together a morning or afternoon tea, have connections in the hotel industry, let's say, who gave her the venue hire for free in return for a shout out. And then all these people, just throwing money for, let's say, charitable celebrity, because when you roll in those circles, celebrities. So, hey, autograph ball by this person, or I don't know, autograph book by this person, and raising thousands and thousands of dollars. And I just remember seeing that amount going, $30,000. Holy crap. Like, how did that person raise that much money? And then finding out, well, it's all because of who she knew, who she knows. Now, I'm not saying that that is in any way dishonest, because she really did raise the money. But it's really hard when you don't have those connections. And as one of my friends was like collecting recyclable bottles, cans, and recycling them here in Australia, because you get a little bit of money for recycling them. And she'd go around driving around for hours and make, if she was lucky, $100 for the week, on top of having to work a 9 to 5 job. So don't compare yourself. Moral of the story, don't compare how much money you raise to anyone else, because I guarantee you don't know all the story as to what's going on behind the scenes. This equally applies to every other part of the pageant as well, because for every part of the pageant, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Some people are lucky in one area, very unlucky in other areas. Some people are naturally blessed across all the areas, and then some people just have to struggle through because they don't really have any help or connections in any of the areas. So just make sure you don't do that comparison. Um, if you have any particular questions about sponsorship, or you have a sponsorship idea you want to run past me, you can always email me. Easiest way to do it, info@adrianjkwan.com. No, that's my other one. Info@thepageantproject.com. I'm going in between two businesses at the same time. Info@thepageantproject.com. And I'll be happy to give you my 5 cents worth on your idea. Having said that, I don't think by any means that I am the be all and end all. So I might say it's not a great idea and it really works for you. On the other hand, I might give you a great idea and it just falls flat on its face, or maybe for one reason or other, it just wasn't the right fit for you. But when it comes to sponsorship, those three things, as I said, number one, be very specific about what you want. Don't be vague. Number two, lead with why someone should sponsor you. What's in it for me? Remember to address that. That's the most important thing. And be very clear what value you're going to add to them. And then number three, make sure you deliver what you promised. Any questions, any suggestions, let me know. Info@thepageantproject.com, and I will speak to you again soon.